Welcome to another episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. I am your host, Mitch Lafon, joined this week by guitarist extraordinaire and fellow Canadian, Sean Kelly. Good day, sir. And
Good day, Mitch. How are you, man?
Good. I'm actually really good. You know, the problem with Sean is that I don't know how to introduce you. So you've been with Helix, you've been with Crash Kelly, you've been with Lee Aaron. You are in what is going to be my favorite band ever, 4x Fate. Am I missing stuff? Yeah, I think I am. You've done Coney Hatch.
Yeah, worked with Coney Hatch, Carol Pope and Rough Trade.
Right. So that's
Metal
why
on Ice.
Metal on Ice. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we can't.
Nelly Furtado is who I'm playing with tomorrow night.
Yeah, so that's the thing. There's so much to choose from, and of course, what makes you guitarist extraordinaire is that if you listen to that list, it's music from all genres. I mean, you're not going to tell me that Nelly Furtado is the exact same thing as Helix. It's just not true, and yet you handle it as if it was just another day at the office. It's remarkable, quite frankly.
Well, thanks, man. You know, I said this in my Metal on Ice book, and I really feel it. Like, you know, rock and roll, as much as I love hard rock and heavy metal, and that's always going to be my first love, it really did open up a whole other world of influences to me, and I've been very lucky that the path that I've been led down has kind of led me into classical guitar records and doing other things like playing with Nelly. And, you know, at the end of the day, there's two types of music, right? Good and bad, and I'm lucky I play with a lot of artists, great artists who make the good kind. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. And your stuff, by the way, with Helix is phenomenal. You know, I've known Brian for years and years and years, and he's put out a lot of great CDs, but the last couple especially, with you playing and writing, have just been some of their best work in years. You know?
Well, I really appreciate that, but, you know, I appreciate that on a whole other level, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have had a chance to do that. So, right. You know, Mitch is like my musical guardian angel. I think you just kind of float around with wings or something, and I'm looking forward to the next adventure.
Yeah, so
I'm actually in the middle of the next adventure with 4x Fate.
Well, that's it, 4x Fate, and of course, I'm working on getting you into U2, Metallica, and to be Madonna's guitarist at the same time. That'll be
no problem.
No, jokes aside, yeah, we've also got that 4x Fate, or you've got that 4x Fate, and Todd Howarth and, of course, John Regan this month or in September started putting it together. They got some rough demos down. Where do you come into all of that?
It's funny. I'm actually, I just got finished having an email conversation with Todd, and I'm about to lay down my guitar parts now. The beauty of technology these days is that we can actually work back and forth long distance. I'm often recording things here at my home studio or in a studio here in Toronto, and then going back and forth. And what's really great is that with the 4x Fate thing, we're still getting the live feel, because the guys got together in New York to cut the beds, and so we've got the live band feel. I can react to that because I have such a blessed synergy with those guys. I'll be able to feel those rhythms and put my guitar parts down and capture that live energy, send it on back. And, you know, we're going to be off to the races. And I got to tell you, Todd Howarth has come up with some amazing stuff. He's been the composer on these first batch of tunes, and really exciting, musical, challenging stuff. I can't wait to dig my teeth into it.
Yeah, he has really been energized. You know, last year, Todd and you and John, separately though, all took part in this A World with Heroes Kiss tribute album that I put together for this palliative care home. And when I contacted Todd, he was like, well, you know, I don't really do music anymore. I've got my own little thing going on in San Diego. And then he did the songs. And then 4x Fate came about. And he's got a whole different perspective. I mean, he's firing at 120%. He's good to go. I mean, he's really into it. And that's so wonderful to get Todd that way again, right?
Well, it's amazing, and, you know, it's funny because, you know, he's such an open and collaborative guy. He's saying, hey, Sean, I want you to write on this. I'm going, hey, man, you're on fire right now. Mm-hmm. I want to just kind of ride the Todd train. Let me just throw some licks down on this stuff. Like, you know, he's got such a feel, and when you put John and Todd together, those years of collective grooving, they're so apparent, like those guys just have this amazing feel and friendship, and it all comes across in the music, and I'm looking forward to just slapping down some guitar on that,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing that. I'm really looking forward to hearing that. Now, speaking of hearing, let's talk about today's episode. We've got 3 fantastic guests. First up, we've got Eric Martin of Mr. Big, followed by Ray Schulman of Gentle Giant, and then we'll finish the episode today with Joseph Williams, of course, from Toto. But Mr. Big, new album, The Stories We Could Tell. I have heard the album. It is really fantastic. And fans that think that Mr. Big is all about that one ballad, let me disabuse you of that. This album is not about ballads. It's about kick-ass rock and roll. And are you a fan of Mr. Big? Are you familiar?
Huge fan.
Yeah.
I am very familiar. I follow the band even through the Richie Kotzen years.
Yeah.
I think it is hard rock of the highest caliber. And the way that those guys can marry melody with pop sensibility, with insane chops, is fantastic. The beauty of those guys is they can have a tune like Green Tinted 60s Mind. Mm-hmm. And man, that's no walk in the park to play. But it doesn't sound like it is. It's difficult. It just sounds like great music, and that's the beauty of it. Those guys have virtuosity, but it's always in service to great songs. And then you add a voice like Eric Martin's on top of that, look out.
Yeah, look out. But the problem with Mr. Big, though, is that everybody just goes, oh, they're the To Be With You band. Do you think that that's sort of, when you have a single that's so big, it can sometimes hurt you?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I think that I don't think any of those bands suffered, certainly not financially, from having hit songs. And it's funny because the other band that comes to mind is Extreme.
Yeah.
With More Than Words, right?
They're the More Than Words band.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a lot of secretaries and housewives who returned some albums when they, bought it for that one song. But to be honest with you, those bands have earned their longevity and their core following through this heightened level of musicianship and songcraft. And you know what I'd love to do with all those people who say that, who dismiss those bands? I would just love for Nuno Bettencourt and Paul Gilbert to go visit those people at their houses and just play like 3 songs for them, because I've seen both those guys play live. I've seen both bands. It's absolutely unbelievable music. And it's funny, in terms of hard rock and melodic hard rock, I rank both those bands and Mr. Big, since we're talking about, like right there at the top.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of Paul Gilbert, though, how do you rank him in terms of guitar gods?
I'm going to tell you a story about Crash Kelly in L.A. I get a call from my label, and we were going to L.A. to do some work and some promo and some press. They said, hey, we got you a gig. It's at the Viper Room. I'm going, oh, great. They said, yeah, it's opening for Paul Gilbert during NAMM. And I don't know if you know what NAMM is.
Yeah.
It's the North American Music Merchants Association. It's basically when guitar players ruled the earth. So I said, you're going to put me in L.A. and Hollywood, opening up for Paul Gilbert in front of a bunch of guitar players? I'm thinking, that sounds a little scary. But, at the end of the day, it went over great. And I got to tell you, Paul Gilbert's a sweet guy. And once again, even in his solo stuff, terrifying chops. But he also has this great pop sensibility. He's coming from Todd Rundgren and Cheap Trick and XTC. Like, I can hear all these other influences in his songwriting. And I rank him very highly as a player. And, it's funny, even the tone on the last few Mr. Big records, really raw rock and roll. It's not this processed sound that's so associated with the 80s. That guy digs in, and he's playing, like, really classic licks. I think he's fantastic.
Oh, he is fantastic, and the new album's fantastic. And why don't we just listen to Eric Martin talk about the new album and talk about the band's career. Here's Eric Martin. We are talking with Eric Martin of Mr. Big. Good day, sir.
Good day, Mitch.
Good day.
How are you?
Good, actually. I'm doing well over here in beautiful, sunny but cold Montreal.
Oh, Montreal. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm in outside of San Francisco. I'm in a little burg called Marin County. I'm about maybe a mile away from Skywalker Ranch. You know,
oh, there you go. Star Wars fans.
Awesome. I am actually. I eat at these restaurants, and George Lucas is there, and I'm like, my kids are talking to me at the same time. I'm like, shh, quiet. You know, that's George.
So are you such a huge Star Wars fan that you happened to move in next to Lucas Ranch, or was that just sort of haphazard?
No, it's haphazard. I'm not stalking the old man.
You're not a diehard fan. But let's talk the new album, The Stories We Could Tell. And let me start with this. A few years ago, the band put out a statement, and I won't read the whole thing, but it said, Mr. Big has had 12 great years of making music all over the world. We thank our friends and fans everywhere. As of February 2002, Mr. Big is no longer together. Well, I'm looking at my calendar here, and it says 2014. So what happened?
It's like The Godfather, you know. Every time you want to quit, they keep bringing you back. What happened to the band in 2002? Oh man, that is so long ago. I mean, it's not as fresh in my mind as it was in 2000. Like after like about 5 years, you kind of lose the taste for hate,
right?
Or whatever you had between your couple guys in the band or whatever like that. So I don't know. It just ran its course. We were on the road constantly. I lost touch with my family so bad. I mean, like I lost a wife.
Right.
You know, actually when I was on the road, my father passed away, and I was like, everything was just a nightmare. And I'm not completely saying that it's like Mr. Big's fault or the touring schedule, but it was just like, it felt like it went too long. We were kind of getting on each other's nerves. It was a shame too, because after, you know, they go all angry in the last gig, you know, and all that, and couple years, 5 years go by, and you kind of realize that, oh my God, this is the best band I've ever been in.
Right.
And I played with great musicians. I mean, real famous guys, amazing, talented people, but the four of us had clicked. You know, our chemistry was cool, and so I kind of missed it. But I mean, I had to keep missing it for about 7 years, maybe longer. God, 8, 9, 10. It was. We got back together in 2009.
Right.
But it was a lot of.
And it was sort of accidental, right?
Effort.
You were just sort of in L.A. and decided to jam on a song, House of Blues, wherever it was.
I basically kind of sent out an olive branch. My son was learning. He wanted to play bass guitar,
right?
And I went, oh man, this is a perfect opportunity for me to email Billy Sheehan and just ask him, you know, where I can get a bass guitar, a left-handed bass guitar for like a little kid. Right. And he wrote me back and said, I was looking if his company Yamaha, you know, to make his basses, had something like that. And he wrote back and said they didn't have anything like that. And thanks for reaching out. It's good to hear read your words, not really hear your voice, you know, just reaching out. And for me, it was great. It took a weight off my shoulders. I mean, I'd been thinking about it for a long, long time. I was really bummed out that the band broke up. I didn't dig it at all. I mean, I totally, you know, pulled the livelihood right underneath my feet.
But is it more than just financial, though? I mean, it's certainly nice to make Mr. Big money, especially when you go to Japan, but it's got to be more than that. There's got to be friendship or respect or...
It was. I mean, I think we kind of lost our respect for each other. But after, you know, years go by, yeah, granted, it's the best band I've ever been in, but these were the only friends I knew for a great many years. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, I did miss the camaraderie or the bonding, the brotherhood, if you will. And so, long story short, this was going to be for my son's birthday. I have twin boys in November, and in December around Christmas time, big box came to the house. Mm-hmm. It was from Billy Sheehan. He'd found a bass guitar in a pawn shop in Japan.
Oh, nice!
And converted it over to a left-handed bass. Yeah, I don't know what he did to it. Maybe a couple little things and string changes, but he had like his bass instructional video and a book, and just a little note that said, Merry Christmas and all that. And man, to me that was like a great. And it was an olive branch, and
it was very cool too. I mean, just from my perspective,
it was very cool.
He could have hung up on you, right? He could have just said, "Hey, listen, dude, leave me alone."
Oh yeah. But I knew after so many years. I mean, I was actually thinking he was gonna, but he totally surprised me, and and then I realized, I go, man, there's a genuine guy right there. He's a sweet man, and incredibly
nice.
Loyal and a great friend. I mean, now it's just a little. It's completely starting over now. So we got back together in 2009, and like you said, I reached out to Billy and I said, I started to have conversations with him after that, and we were just talking about, man, we'd sure like to get the band back together. We're on a mission from God, And I said, why don't you reach out to Paul? And he goes, well, Paul's playing the House of Blues. And ironically, Richie Kotzen is opening, and Pat Torpey's the drummer. And I'm going to go and check him out. So it all fell into place. Those guys jammed at the end. They played one of our staple songs, a song called Daddy, Brother, Lover, Little Boy, that was on the Lean Into It album, the second album. And then they played 30 Days in the Hole, the old Humble Pie song that we all were influenced by. And it went over great. The audience loved it. And Paul looked over at Richie, and he goes, man, he imagined, wow, I think it would be great if Eric Martin was in this picture. And he called me, and then bada boom, bada bang. That's all she wrote. We got back together. We had a nice dinner at Paul's house, and got together. It was ironic too, because we were toasting champagne, me, Billy, and Pat and Paul at Paul's house. We were toasting champagne, and one of our champagne glasses broke, and Pat cut his finger, right? And it was like we were signing it in blood. Anyway,
your blood brothers.
Brothers, right?
Was that awkward when Richie Kotzen was there? Because I've interviewed him recently, and when I asked him about Mr. Big, he seemed, let's just say, less than enthusiastic to talk about the band.
Oh, of course. I mean, I feel bad for Richie, man. I was instrumental in getting Richie Kotzen in our band.
Okay.
I'm whining and dining him, and talking to him every day, going, man, you'd be perfect for the band. And then we do 2 albums, and the band breaks up. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, because he hitched his wagon to this, or hitched his, what is it saying?
He hitched trailer.
He hitched his Starr to our wagon that had 3 wheels on it. So. I mean, I'm sure he's reluctant to talk about stuff, but you know what? We've seen each other hundreds of times after that. I mean, I run into Richie all the time. We're good friends, and we actually in 2011, when we were touring, we were playing in Hong Kong, and Richie was opening it to us.
Right.
It was surreal, because when we got off the airplane, there was these buses that picked us up, and it had a poster of the band. It was funny. I mean, some of us didn't get the joke, but I thought it was funny. It had Billy, Pat, Paul, me, and Richie sort of superimposed in the picture,
right,
like one big happy Mr. Big family. It was funny. But Richie's good people, and there's no bad vibes at all, man. He's good. He's a star. I've always believed in that guy. I've championed that guy for years. I like all the stuff that he's done, through R&B to hard rock, and now to the Winery Dogs. I mean, I remember, I played an acoustic show. I do that a lot lately. In between writing for Mr. Big or touring with Mr. Big, I have this acoustic solo thing.
I want to get to that because you've got the tour coming up in December.
Yeah. Let me just finish my thought. I apologize. I've talked a lot. So we're in Austria, and Richie goes. Richie came to the show, and I talked him into performing with me, and we did we had a song together. It was called Shine. Mm-hmm. We had a baby together. We had a song called Shine on Mr. Big album, and we played that song, and we brought the house down. And at the end, Richie goes, "Hey, check out this new record I'm putting together." And he played it, and I went, "Oh my God, Richie, it's the best solo endeavor solo record that you've ever done." And I go, "And your band's amazing." And it turned out to be the Winery Dogs, which is ironic.
Which is great.
Anyway, I'm done talking about Richie right this moment.
We're done. That'll be the headline.
But I love talking about Richie. He's a great guy, though. I love the guy.
You'll see. That'll be the headline for the interview. Eric Martin says, "I'm done talking to Richie Kotzen." That's
yeah. That's at this moment. And as soon as I get off the phone, I'm going to be the town crier about his new record. So,
let me ask you about touring in different markets. For some, well, I don't want to say for some unknown reason, but Japan loves Mr. Big. I think you could probably just move to Japan and never have to tour anywhere else. What is it about that market where they can't get enough of you?
We campaigned for years. I mean, Billy went over there in 1988 to do a clinic, and he was talking about Mr. Big, and he was, it was like a little bit of a, brand new kind of band campaigning. We didn't even have a name yet. And like in '89, when we put out that Mr. Big album that you probably have the cassette, I'm pretty sure.
I had it on cassette, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure. And we went to Japan, and we were playing these small clubs, and we kept coming back. And now, like everybody says, every time you go to Japan, they treat you like the Beatles. Well, yeah, if you're good, but not for you. Got to come back. It costs a lot of money to keep coming back year after year, and we just kept doing it because they have continued to show a great loyalty to our band. I mean, and a friendship. And we grew up with these kids, and they wave the freak flag. They wave it high, and
and you have like 7 live albums or something like that, 7 or 8 live albums from Japan. I mean, it's
Well,
it's a hell of a relationship.
That's something too. It is a hell of a relationship, but around somewhere in the 90s, after the couple of hits or whatever, the musical climate changed in the United States, and they were kind of weeding out all the bands that, the 15,000 Poison bands that sounded like Poison, and they weeded them all out, and there was hardly any of us left, and we could either have stayed home and just, struggle it out. We decided to go to Asia and Europe as well. But
which is very smart, by the way. More bands should have done that. Your Teslas and your Rats and your Poisons, they should have just said, all right, North America's dried up, off to Asia, off to Brazil. I mean, they should have done that.
Yeah. Well, 2020 hindsight. I mean, maybe they should have, but some of them did, and some of the good ones did.
Well, you did, and it worked.
We did. It worked, and so we just ended up going to Japan a lot, and we would do it like we would play. We had the luxury we play like 18, 20 shows, and at the end of it, we'd always record our big show, and we were lucky enough to play Budokan in Tokyo, which is, really prestigious. Come on, the Beatles,
Cheap Trick, man, Cheap Trick.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's so funny because in our show, we do this thing at the end of our show, and this is actually a really fun thing to do for us. We switch instruments, and like the last time that we did Smoke on the Water, and I played guitar. Paul played drums, and Pat played bass, and Billy sang. And then we switched again it's just, we've been doing that for years. And the first time we did it, we played "Ain't That a Shame" by Cheap Trick and the Beatles, if you will. Yeah. So we do that a lot. Anyway, we owe a lot to Japan. I mean, they took us in when we were sort of kind of chased out of North America,
Yeah. Now, you mentioned in that answer the hit. So let's talk about the hit. "To Be With You."
Hit, yeah.
And let me put this into context. I once interviewed Doug Fieger of The Knack, and I said to him, "Tell me about My Sharona." And he said, "Well, it's like a golden albatross around my neck." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he says, "Well, everything we've done after was always a measure up against My Sharona. Oh, this is not My Sharona. But it paid for my house. It paid for my kids' education. It paid for that vacation in Hawaii last week." Is there such a thing as a song being too big? I mean, does it, everything you do after that, well, they go, "Well, it's not To Be With You, boys," or is it like, hey?
I only felt it with the record company because, first of all, "To Be With You" is a song that I wrote when I was like 16, 17 years old. Right. I've been holding on to it like a little bag in my bag of tricks for years and years and years. And then I've been singing it forever and all that. And all of a sudden in 1991 is when we recorded it, but 92 when it was a hit. And it was a gigantic hit. I mean, I could talk to you till I'm blue in the face about how it became a hit, but it spread like wildfire in the United States, and then it became number one in 15 countries. Golden albatross or anchor, people say, not to me. The thing that bothered me the most was, I knew it was going to happen, when it became a hit, our record company wanted to keep chasing that hit.
Right.
And
give me 10 more.
Yeah. Give me another "To Be With You." Yeah. And that audience, granted, I remember seeing yuppies when it was called yuppies or younger people, that come to the gigs, and they were like going, "Oh, this is like the "To Be With You" band," and we'd scare the shit out of them, with songs like "Addicted at Rush" or "Shy Boy" or like "Daddy Brother" or like something heavy, and they're like, "Holy Christ!" But the majority of the fans were like into us already. I mean, we already had kind of a bass, a hard rock bass, and a muso kind of bass because of the great playing by Billy and Paul and Pat as well. Yeah. And so Atlantic, I remember when it was the third album, Bump Ahead, which it was called, and they go, "Hey, we did the whole record," and they go, "We don't really hear the "To Be With You," and we're like, what does that mean? And they go, "Can you come up with like another song that has the similarities?" And out of frustration and playing the game, we went, "All right, well, let's do it." I mean, nothing's going to be like "To Be With You." I mean, it feels forced. It totally felt forced.
Well, it wasn't. It didn't feel forced. It was forced.
It was forced, but it felt, it was forced.
It felt wrong.
No, it felt really wrong, but it's the way of the world. The song that I'm going to talk about right now it sold big time. Paul, who's a lot younger than us, was kind of doodling around with this guitar scale thing, like da 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 da. And I'm like, "Dude, man, you know what that is? That's Wild World by Cat Stevens." Yeah. And he goes, "Who's Cat Stevens?" Right? And I go,
"Don't you mean
I go, "Well, check this." What?
He goes, "Don't you mean Yusef?" What's his name now?
Yeah, no. He wasn't Yusef then. Or maybe he was. I don't know. But he was Cat Stevens on Wild World, please. So I remember, like, when we were playing it, I went, I don't know, man. Let's do Peace Train. I mean, swear to God. I go, Peace Train or Morning is Broken. Let's just do something quirky. And when we started playing it a little bit, it kind of started working. And we recorded Wild World. We gave it to him, put it on the record, and then, bada boom, bada bing. Yeah. It took off. But yeah, that was a little kind of a bad taste. But screw it, the audience ate it up. So, but like getting back to your thing, I mean, like, yeah, To Be With You, it wasn't. If you knew our musical history. I mean, that Lean Into It album is chock full of diversity. We have a song called Green Tinted 60s Mind, which is completely left field, psychedelic, kind of almost Electric Boys, Enough, Beatle-esque kind of song.
Yeah.
And then like all this kind of Aerosmithy kind of stuff. There's a song called Never Say Never. There was like 4 or 5 songs that came out on that record as singles, and then To Be With You hit. But I don't look at it. I look at it as it definitely is a gift horse for me, of course, and the rest of the band. But I don't look at it as the mark of death, you know.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the mark of death, but it's just like at some point you probably get tired of those record companies. So when we get to the story we could tell, does Frontier Records or does the record company come to you and say To Be With You, or now you're free to do and you're
no.
Okay, so you're
nobody does that anymore.
And that's got to be very I don't want to say rewarding, but that's got to be refreshing, I guess. So now you're able to make the album you want to make without having to worry about radio singles and an MTV video and the AOR guy.
You know, a lot of that it was great to have that in the music business, to have somebody kind of take over. You know, we write the songs and we trust these people to take over. But then in a way, you know, they can also drop the ball on some stuff. And like how the musical, like I said before, the musical climate changed and everything's completely different now. We're kind of our own bosses and we're kind of in charge of our own destiny. When we got the band back together in 2009, we said, look, we're going to get back together, but we're going to make this painless and not have to feel like we have to do something, like record company involvement or like even like Frontiers. There's not an A&R guy going, where's the hit? You know, there's nobody like that. And if there was, we wouldn't respond to it. We're not those people anymore. We're not those whores anymore. And we look at it as we take on projects where we'll do in 2011 we did a 10-month tour, and then when Billy goes, man, I'm going to do this Winery Dogs project, we go, do it, go do it. You know, we want everybody to be happy and make everything like I said, easy and painless.
Will you ever do a Winery Dogs Mr. Big double bill tour?
I don't think. Come on. I mean, that would be, first of all, that would be a lot of work for Billy Sheehan, you know.
Yeah, but he's not adverse to hard work. He's a workhorse.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh, no, he is a workhorse. He's got a bunch of bands and a bunch of irons in the fire. But, no, I mean, Winery Dogs is its own thing. You know, I look at Mr. Big, they're two different things. Hey, look, but you know what? We played the gig with Richie Kotzen. I don't mind the Big Happy Family. You know, keeping everything positive, man. You know.
Yeah, why not? Now, you've got the UK solo acoustic tour coming up in December. Mm-hmm. What are folks going to see on that? Is it sort of cover songs and all the best of all the stuff you've done, or is it sort of just Mr. Big acoustic? What are we hearing? It's
anything and everything. What I call it is, my wife hates this, but I call it the endless Mama Needs a New Pair of Shoes tour. And I go out and it's like a storyteller kind of vibe, and
nice.
You know, jokes and all that. And I probably tell the stories we could tell, like too many stories. And I play the Eric Martin music, and I play Mr. Big. I play you know, some of the covers that Mr. Big used to do,
right. But
I invite people out of the audience. They come and sing. If I get there for a sound check, and there's most of the time it's opening acts that I've never met before, and we kind of jam on stuff, and they play To Be With You and Wild World and some of the other, you know, more folky kind of songs that Mr. Big does. And like, I don't care, you know, when somebody in the audience goes, I can sing, I go, okay, you know, and then they come up and when they sing "To Be With You," it's like 90% of the time it's kind of shits the bed, but it's still fun, you know.
Yeah. Quickly, I don't know how long we have. I think they said 20 minutes or half an hour. We're way past that.
No,
now.
we're fine.
We're good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Pat. He announced his Parkinson's disease. When you wake up and you read that, you hear that, you get the phone call, what's your first reaction? I mean, it's got to be devastating, I would think.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. When I didn't get a phone call, we had a band meeting.
Okay.
It was actually, no, it was before the band meeting. I went down or up or whatever to L.A., and I worked with our producer, Pat Regan, who produced Stories, and we were doing demos at Pat Torpey's house. And I get there and I see Pat, and he looks tired. You know, he wasn't getting any sleep, he wasn't eating right, and he looked really, God, lack of a better word, I feel like when I say depressed, it's like, you know, big alarms go off, but he looks sad. And I knew that something was going on in 2011. He had like some kind of a twitch in his right leg, but he was still able to rock out. I mean, he was saying, I made mistakes here and there, and like, I never noticed. I mean, that he's a workhorse, you know. And when I get into the studio and I go, hey, I got all these songs and all these songs that we'd written over the year, ideas that we'd written, I go, here they are. And I go, Pat, you know, even like your song, Pat wrote a song called East West, and we were demoing that up. And he goes, hey, hold on for a minute. And he kind of slumps down to the floor and he goes, Eric, I have Parkinson's disease. And I was like, holy shit. It was like you could hear a pin drop. I was so quiet and felt so bad for him, and he was really bummed. And he was more concerned about like what we thought and like how we were going to go on and all that. And we're like, Pat. We kept reassuring him that he's our brother and our friend, and we're not going anywhere without you, you know, and without Pat. Anyway, first stages of Parkinson's, and it was really difficult. I mean, like he played, like musically, he played, you know, some V drums and worked with a programmer, and he did play on the record, and he worked really hard on it. But he was really tired, and over the course of like a couple months, he started getting a nutritionist and a physical therapy, and started, you know, sleeping better, eating right. And even though, you know, we all know there's just no cure for this thing, but he was getting his strength back. And as of a week and a half ago, he wrote this big letter, and he actually called our management and said that he wants to come to some selected cities, some countries or whatever, on this tour and play some songs. And play, you know, we're going to do an acoustic portion, Pat's going to be involved. Now, and then he said, man, I could play more songs. He just he feels great about what's going on. And mentally, I'm sure he's not good with it, but he's dealing with it and working around it and cutting corners and trying to get through it, you know. Mm-hmm. And we enlisted this guy named Matt Starr. Yeah.
From Ace Frehley.
Great drummer, great singer, which was a prerequisite. I mean, you have to he's not really filling, well, I guess he is filling Pat Torpey's shoes, I mean, or on the side for Pat, because Matt's going to play the nucleus of the gig, of the rock portion of it. Right. And Pat is also going to play the rock portion as well, as much as he can. And like I said, the acoustic portion. But we did a rehearsal, and with Billy, Pat. Pat was there. Pat was on the couch. It was surreal. I mean, here I am singing, and Billy's playing bass, and Paul's playing guitar, and we got Matt Starr playing drums, and we're playing, and Pat's our audience. It was fucking weird. Yeah. And we did the 5 staple songs that we do, and like, we did Daddy Brother, Alive and Kickin', Addicted at Rush, Green Shaded 60s Mind, and a signature Pat Torpey song called Take Cover, which has got this really intricate, tricky drum part. And Matt starts playing it a little bit, and he's, kind of getting it. He's like 85% there. And Pat Torpey gets up, grabs his sticks, and goes, "Here, let me show you. This is the beat you need to do." And he plays the beat. And I'm thinking, what happened here, man? Like miraculously, coming out of the shell. And then he played it, and he gave Matt Starr the thumbs up, and it was good, and it was kind of took some of the pressure off. And we're going to move forward with Matt for the touring. Yeah. But Pat is going to be there, and I'm glad he's not just going to be there in spirit; he's going to be there physically, and we're happy for that. We're brothers. I said earlier in the conversation about me and Billy and Mr. Big's the best band we've ever been in, and you go, yeah, but you're friends too. But you're right. You're absolutely right. We are good friends, and it doesn't matter if we were broke up for like 7, 10, 20, it doesn't matter. We're drawn to each other. So we're gonna do this, and I'm really looking forward to having Pat there with us.
Yeah, and that's going to be great. It's going to be great for the fans, and also great for Pat to be there. And just for Matt, Matt, last year I put out my wife's father passed away, and I did this KISS tribute called "The World with Heroes." And Matt was one of the guys that stepped up and lent some drumming talent to that with his band Burning Rain and stuff. And another guy that wrote a song for you on the Lean Into It album, Jeff Paris. Also, he lent some vocal talents to that too. And it's great to see Matt with Mr. Big, because he really deserves to be seen on bigger and bigger stages. He's
Well, you're absolutely right. He's got the whole package. He's a great drummer.
Absolutely.
He's a great singer, and he's a good guy.
Yep.
He's a great guy, And that's what we were bowled over by that. It's a trifecta.
It is.
Yeah.
And of course you'll have all the crazy KISS fans, because he was in Ace Frehley's band that'll come and check you out.
Right. He still is, actually. He still plays with Ace, but yeah. That's okay. I'm a KISS fan too.
There you go. And of course, Pat Regan did some work with KISS back in the day. I mean, he's done stuff with Keel and Purple and all that, but he's done a little bit of work with KISS too. So
yeah, he did do a KISS record. Huh? Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, so see how it is. We're part of it. See, it's like, I bet anybody who you talk to, that you interview, I bet it's like the Kevin Bacon thing, where they're directly and indirectly connected to KISS.
Yeah, 6 degrees of separation from KISS. Yeah, when you talk to musicians, there's always KISS was my first show. KISS was my first album. I'm friends with Paul Stanley. Gene played on my record, and you're like, okay, all right, we got it. But there you go.
But I got to tell you something though.
Yeah.
I miss the Catman.
Peter Chris. Good guy.
I miss the Catman. See, that should be the title right there. I miss the Catman.
That's Mr. Big's next album right there. That's the title.
Yeah, right. We have come up with these quirky-ass titles. I think that'll be perfect.
Well, you've got the acoustic tour coming up. You have, 2 months to write a song called I Miss the Catman.
I'll do it. Actually, when I get to, right after the Mr. Big tour, 5 days later, or a week later, that's when I go to the UK. And playing bass with me on a couple gigs, this guy Chris Dale, and is the biggest KISS fan ever. I mean, probably next to you. But Chris was Billy Sheehan's bass tech for a long time. And he's also a bass player, plays with Bruce Dickinson band and stuff. But he's a huge KISS fan. I mean, the guy, and Ace Frehley, and whatchamacallit, I can't remember the guy's name,
Bruce Coolidge?
No, the Unks, or what was that?
Vinnie Vincent.
Vinnie Vincent, he wore a Vinnie Vincent shirt. He likes them all,
Well,
Look, he loves Ace. Trust me.
I'm not sure I
Ace
can respect that, Vinny. Vince.
No, but Ace is king. But I know you can't respect it, right? Well, come on. What about now? What about now? I mean, you still respect?
All right. All right. I'll respect Vinny. I guess he helped.
Come on, man. You got to respect.
Anybody?
Well, I mean, hold on for a minute. Do you respect Gene for saying rock is dead?
I don't respect Gene when he says anything other than "I want to rock and roll all night and party every day." He is not. He's not meant to speak publicly. He is, and I'm saying this as a diehard Kiss fan. He is obnoxious when he speaks because it's contrived. It's not genuine. It's just meant to get headlines. It's meant to be controversial, and it's just like, just be Gene Simmons. Don't be this character all the time. And he shouldn't talk. But that said, I will pay my $50 or $100 to go see him shake his bass
domino.
Because
exactly,
and that's what it should be. And
anyway,
it's unfortunate that it's not that anymore. Eric, great pleasure speaking with you. Actually, new album, of course, is The Stories We Could Tell, and I think we've told a few good ones today. And
there's so much more. I thought you were going to get to them, but maybe that'll be part 2 for the future.
I would definitely do a part 2. In fact, if you have any more stories, I've got time. Just say them out loud. But, of course, the album comes out at the end of September. It's great to have the guys back. There's a tour coming up, and we need to get you to Canada. Need to get you to Montreal.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Try to avoid, January to May.
Dude, we have a tour parka. Anyway.
There you go.
But it's been great talking to you too, Mitch. And you're doing a lot of great things, and
thank you.
Keeping rock alive. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I've heard the Stories We Could Tell album. They sent me one of those preview links where I could download it.
Right.
And it's really great stuff.
Cool.
There's just been a lot of really good music coming out. During the interview, you mentioned Electric Boys. They put out a new album this year that's fucking killer. This Thing's killer. Gary Sharon put out. You guys are keeping it alive, and you're doing it well. And it's nice to see that it's not being controlled by record companies, and we're getting stuff with heart and soul. And this album has a lot of heart and a lot of soul, and just some killer playing. I mean, just killer playing.
I agree. I concur. Oh, well, thank you very much. Big thanks.
Thank you.
From me to represent Billy, Pat, and Paul, and Matt now. But thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye now. Well, there we have it. That was my chat with Eric Martin of Mr.Big. And, of course, let me remind you that this episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon is brought to you by the A World with Heroes EP. All money is going to the Vaudreuil-Soulanges Palliative Care Home in Hudson, Quebec. And, of course, it is available on iTunes and features Russ Dwarf and the Killer Dwarves doing Nothing to Lose and Come On and Love Me, Sudden Flames, the last ever recording by Dick Wagner doing Every Time I Look at You, and of course, Sean, it features one more track. What would it be?
I think we're calling Dr. Love on that one by a little band called Crash Kelly.
Right, which you're part of. And in fact, whoops, I forgot one. There is Matt Bradshaw doing Save Your Love. But back to Crash Kelly. This was a song that you had done a few years ago. I think it was a bonus track in Japan on something. And this year we had it remastered by Mayor Applebaum. Tell me a little bit about when you recorded that.
Yeah, well, in Japan, when you put out a record, because domestic CDs are actually more expensive than imports in Japan, you need to provide the label with bonus tracks so that the fans will do the right thing and buy the domestic CD. It's very confusing. But anyway, it was a great opportunity for me to record, one of my favorite tunes. I'm a Kiss fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so much fun to play, and great memories of Kiss Alive too.
Yeah, so
I had to step up and do it.
Hopefully fans will pick it up because it goes for a great cause, and you've got some great versions on there. Now, speaking of songs and things that come out of the 70s, let's listen here to my interview with Ray Schulman of Gentle Giant. And, of course, their sort of claim to fame was their album, The Power and the Glory. Were you a Gentle Giant fan at all, or do you have any connection to that album?
You know what? I can't say I was. I mean, I certainly I've heard Gentle Giant music, and I respect any of those progressive rock acts from the 70s. What I know most about him is that Derek Shulman, who was an A&R rep for Mercury, who worked with Bon Jovi and Dream Theater, was in the band. And I know that he kind of coming from that heightened sense of sophistication and musicality that was part of the prog rock thing. You know, he was always a real musician's A&R guy.
A muso.
What's that?
He's a muso, right? That's the term.
Yeah, a muso. That's right. He's a muso, man. Come on, man. You know what I mean? And I think he always brought that kind of sympathetic thing to the acts he worked with, and I always thought that was really cool. Anytime I've seen an interview with him, I go, that guy gets it. He's been in the trenches.
Yeah, and of course, on the Power and the Glory, he's all over the album, singing all over it. And what's interesting about this and talking with Ray Schulman is that the album was re-released this year and features stereo and 5.1 mixes, all that wonderful stuff, plus bonus tracks. And it was put together by Steven Wilson.
Yeah, he's been doing some cool stuff. I know he did the King Crimson remixes, and I think he did some Jethro Tull too. I think he did Thick as a Brick. You know, I love that stuff. Like that's a guy. I think his relationship with prog is probably like my relationship with Canadian metal. You know, he just wants to get in there and find out and be a part of those artists, and what a great way to do it.
Yeah, and of course he was in Porcupine Tree. In fact, is Porcupine Tree still a band?
Well, you know, he's in Porcupine Tree. I think so, but he's also got, like, he's so prolific, right? He's got his solo thing. I think he does something with one of the members of Opus as well.
Yeah.
I think they've got a project.
Yep, he's done something with them.
Fantastic guitarist. And here's a guy who serves the music. He's an amazing guitarist, but he values the music above all else. So when he's doing his solo records, he has other people play. He writes music for other players to play. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
like, what other solo guitarist does that?
Yeah, you're right. And well, you do something similar by working with all these artists too. But I'm looking at his biography here, and it says he's worked with Opeth, King Crimson, Pendulum, Jethro Tull, XTC, Yes, etc. Busy guy, and. You know, for fans of the 74 album Power and the Glory, I've had a chance to hear this new remaster with these 5.1 mixes. It really just sounds night and day. I mean, sonically, it is just an experience for your ears. I mean, it's ecstasy for the ears, if you want.
Nice.
Just really done. So why don't we sit back and listen to Ray Schulman talk about Gentle Giant, that classic album, and of course what he's doing now. Here's Ray. We are talking with Ray Schulman of Gentle Giant. Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. And, you know, it's been a long, storied history. The band started out, God, when was it? 70s?
Yeah, 1970. Yep, just the turn of the decade, 1970.
Tell me a little bit about the band's origins and its start, because, you know, if you go back to the 70s, we were just coming out of Beatlemania, we were just coming out of the Rolling Stones, we started moving into Alice Cooper, and it was a little bit before Kiss, but, you know, New York Dolls, that whole sort of glammy, theatrical thing. Where did you find yourself in that scene?
Okay, so, well, we're brothers, the three Schulman brothers who started Gentle Giant. We were in a band before that called Simon Dupree and the Big Sound. Now, and this is pretty much the late 60s type band. And we started off actually very much as a kind of R&B band, kind of, you know, and stuff. And as things changed, as kind of psychedelia came in the late 60s, and, you know, from after the Summer of Love in 68 and all that, we kind of we had this song called Kites. It's a kind of a bit of a psychedelic type song, but we had a kind of top 10 hit with it. And it was probably the worst thing that could have happened to us, really, because we really hated the idea of being a pop group. And we were kind of, you know, just the way we dressed, and we were kind of a little bit manipulated by kind of our manager and that kind of thing. So
Right.
really, we got really sick of it towards the end of the, probably by 1969, we said, no, enough of this. We want to do something a bit more serious. And so we took some time out, and really, we started in the kind of in 1917. Really, I think I suppose what they called progressive music. At the time they called underground.
Yeah.
Really, it developed on from. I mean, you go back to it's really from kind of psychedelic, almost from Sgt. Pepper, I guess, and Pet Sounds. That through into the 70s, and just people kind of wanted to experiment and see how far they could push this thing called, kind of rock music, I suppose. And that's how we kind of came out of it. And so we auditioned for players, and the most fortunate thing that happened, we hooked up with a guy called Kerry Meniere, who was fresh out of the Royal Academy of Music in London, and he'd have been in the band. There'd been a bit of a disaster touring Germany, and kind of he was broke and everything else. And so he was the first one we recruited, and it's the best thing we could have done, because his education and his knowledge just like really inspired everybody to, see how far we could push it.
Right. Yeah. So let me move on here to this album, The Power and the Glory. Now, it's been sort of remixed by Steven Wilson, who was in Porcupine Tree.
That's right.
Let me talk about the importance of that album, because when you think back to the history of progressive rock, that's sort of one of those albums that just jumps out at you. It's sort of one of these watershed moments in the progressive rock, movement, for lack of a better word.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about going into the studio. What were you thinking of? Were you trying to make a more pop-sounding record? Were you trying to make a more what was sort of the going into it like?
No, it wasn't actually. Actually, the album before that was an album called In a Glass House.
Right.
Right. Now, that album was actually pretty traumatic to make, because our older brother, Phil, my Derek and myself, his older brother, he'd left the band, and really we considered our future very seriously. He said, shall we carry on? What should we do?
Right.
And so we did carry on with the 5-piece, and we made In the Glass House really it felt very strained. Even in the studio, it felt very strained. And coming out of that, we put it out, and at the same time, I think we were on CBS at the time in America. They refused. They didn't want it. They didn't want to put it out. And luckily enough, it really sold well on import into America, and really it got very well, really good critical reviews.
Yeah.
And so that really encouraged us. And so going into The Power and the Glory, there was just the different feel. It was just such an optimistic feel. We were still all living in Portsmouth, England, in the South Coast. It was before the kind of band spread around the world, as bands do as time goes on. So, it was very much a living, breathing, rehearsing every day and that kind of thing. And really just, I think we wanted to make a kind of a loose concept album, and really the times, there was quite a political time with, Watergate having been just, recently passed and everything else. And I think the general theme, and it's more Derek's than mine, of course, because Derek is a lyricist, but he wanted to, just the whole story of how you go into it with all this, with, being idealistic, and then how power corrupts, and how, stuff, the cycle of power, really.
Yeah. Sadly, nothing's changed from the 70s if you look around at our politicians, right?
Exactly right. So it's a kind of timeless story, really. That's exactly what happened. So that was the story going into it. And just to say, it was just a generally optimistic, upbeat feel within the band, and even and that carried on into the studio.
Yeah, and let me talk a little bit also about the instrumentation. Back in that time period, if you look at the bands from Led Zeppelin to Black Sabbath, it was pretty much bass, guitar, drum, vocal. You guys never shied away from trying anything. I mean, I'm just looking at what you have here on Power and the Glory. Marimbas, vibraphones, acoustic guitars, violins, tambourines, sleigh bell. Was there I don't want to say a point, but were you trying to bring in as many instruments, or talk a little bit about the instrumentation and what was the thought behind using all these different sounds?
Well, I mean, obviously this is synthesizers are kind of just come in a little bit in that time, but really we used to record pretty much as a basic, just as you described, bass drums, guitar, and keyboards. But then it's what we did it from the very first album. Really, we kind of hire in different instruments, and particularly acoustic instruments, as you say, vibraphone, marimba. And even on early ones, we used to get in like these little miniature pipe organs and regals and stuff like that, just and clavichords and harpsichords, and really just see if the texture made any sense within the song. And it became a working practice of ours, really. Record the track and then see what we could add. Of course, nowadays everything with the push of a button is on one synthesizer. You can,
Well, that's the thing. It must have been exceptionally complicated because, for folks that weren't around back then, they don't realize that you had to take 2-inch tape and a razor blade and start splicing stuff together. It's not Pro Tools.
That's right.
Was it exceptionally labor-intensive to put the album together?
Well, no. I mean, we did rehearse really well, and
so you played it live?
Yeah, we pretty much played it live. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Okay.
Just both myself and definitely Kerry, being a kind of schooled musician. I mean, even though, occasionally actually he did actually score some of the vocal parts, and later on he used to actually score them out for us to learn. But in those days, it was like you learn these parts by ear, but they were basically orchestrated parts and pretty tight arrangements on some of them. And then there'd be sections where things could be a bit looser. But no, it was it was all pretty much live.
That sort of I guess that explains why it has such heart, because these days a lot of albums sound very what's the word for it, like in a hospital, very controlled, very clean,
Yep, clinical, yeah.
Yeah, this has heart to it. So you actually played this stuff live. Was that a challenge in itself? Did you ever make mistakes and say, "Oh my God, we got to redo this whole part," or did you just say, "Well, that's what it is, folks, and here we go"?
Well, no. And if the mistake was a happy accident and it actually enhanced the song, then no one realised, then fine. But no, we do a few takes definitely.
Okay.
And to get it right.
So now Steven Wilson came in and put his hands on the album for this new re-release. Did you work with Steven at all? Do you know Steven?
I do know Steven.
Okay.
Yeah, so my day job kind of has been for the last few years. I've been kind of making DVDs and Blu-rays for other artists.
Okay.
And that's where the kind of graphic side comes in and stuff like that. But so I've done all of Steven's kind of his albums and his Blu-rays. I've been working with him.
Okay.
And I don't know if he hired me because he's a Gentle Giant fan, but I found but he's definitely a big Gentle Giant fan, and he kind of nagged it. We'd actually been asked before by other people wanting to kind of remix our stuff in surround, particularly.
Right. And
we were never that keen, but I'd known Steve, and I'd kind of heard his work on other artists, and I thought, this is a clever guy, this is a really good musician, and someone who understands it. And so, when he asked to do it, we said, let's give it a go. And it's one of these albums. Actually, one of the albums we had all the original multi-track, which is very fortunate because unfortunately on some of our albums we've actually lost the tapes, which is a bit tragic. But anyway, so that one was intact, and so then he started working on it. So that's how it started, really.
And so, what does he bring to the project, though? What has he brought to the album? Can you sit down and listen to it and go, "Wow, this is his influence"?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can. Obviously, the surround sound, anyway, that could have never done in there, and that opens up all kind of possibilities. I love the surround mix actually, but even on the stereo mix, I think he actually has quite a lot of reverence for the past. Because really our remit to him was do whatever you want. This is not the 70s. You've got all this kind of tools available to you. Do what you like, but he's not like that at all. He pays utter respect to the past, and he won't use kind of modern reverbs or anything like that. He wants to make it sound as close to the original as possible, but the extra enhancements, I feel it's a much more open sound and it has more depth. And it's almost as if we'd existed with the technology of today, that's how we would have liked to make it sound. I think our original mix is really good anyway, but you know,
it is.
Yeah, so but that's what I feel. He wants to bring to it. He just wants to enhance it just a little, just for the modern day.
Speaking of modern day, is there any chance that the band could get together for one show or one performance or anything? No.
Unfortunately, no. Sorry. It's like it's just one of those things we decided. Well, I decided a long time ago, but to me, the era was then, and personally, I've got no interest in actually kind of reliving it. I loved it at the time. I still enjoy what we did, but I don't want to kind of relive it.
Okay, I'm curious though. Is it just because, a lot of bands like to relive it because there's money at the end of that path.
Sure.
You just don't have interest in the music anymore, or it's just like, listen, I'm doing something else now, and then that's it,
That's really it, and that's how I've kind of, that's how I've kind of lived my life really since the end of the band. I got to say, I love being in the band. I love all we did.
Okay.
But when we decided to finish, it was kind of thing. Well, I'm not going to miss this. I'm going to go on to something different, and that's how I live.
So, what are you doing these days then? You mentioned that you're doing stuff with Blu-rays and CDs and stuff. So, what exactly is the job description?
Well, my current job description, I guess I also Blu-rays and DVDs for other musical acts, which means putting it all together, really, just assembling all the parts, making, doing a certain amount of graphics for the menus and sometimes audio sequences and editing, and it actually means, after working a long time in studio, in production and all that kind of stuff, and since the band, I've had a few kind of different careers. When the band first split, I think the first thing I did was I actually wrote commercial music, like music for advertising, so then I went into production, then I started writing music for computer games and TV, and after I was kind of just really sick of the studio and wanted a life outside of it, I did this thing which, this kind of DVD Blu-ray stuff that I can do at home.
It's funny that you mentioned that you were doing the advertising, because advertising or jingles music is meant to appeal to the broadest base possible, whereas, progressive music is more of a niche market.
That's right.
How was that for you? Did you really feel you were sort of selling out, or did you just say, hey, look, a job's a job, music's music? How did you come to grips with that?
Well, I actually treated it as a kind of puzzle solving in lots of ways, and also technology was just coming in on the early 80s, and I really got into computer stuff and sampling and all that really early on. I loved it, so that's what kind of kept me fascinated by it, and really because it was it's well paid and I could afford all this equipment, so that's, and eventually it becomes I hated it. After a while you go, I got to get out of these. These people are driving me crazy because some of the comments you get.
What was that?
So it's almost like, can you make it sound more orange? It's that kind of, it's like that level. And I think I even had one person who asked me, is that the final volume? And
like, yeah,
that's it. It can't get any louder, can't get any softer. That's the final volume. It's like, it's like, it does drive you crazy eventually, but on the other hand, it's like, I guess that's what they're paying you for, and there can be a lot of kind of amendments and corrections, and they change things all the time. But that's just the nature of it, and I think you can do it for a certain amount of time, but then you have to kind of you have
to get out of it.
You have to get out of it, yeah.
Were there some known brands that you did commercials for?
Oh, I did lots of. In fact, I did a few kind of Nike ads for America that you got there. Yeah, some basketball ones. Or, Nike Air, I used to do, and I did Budweiser and lots of, all kinds of things.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So looking back on the history of Gentle Giant, where do you see the band in terms of rock history? What did you contribute to the sort of the greater good?
Well, I personally think we were pretty. It's hard to know really where we stand in that, but I think we're a pretty unique band, even though we were kind of lumped in together with progressive music. I think at our best we were totally unique,
right?
In that era, and I don't think there is another band like that.
No, and it was certainly a great era for that kind of music. I mean, you know, the 70s gave us sort of the rise of Pink Floyd and Jethro Tull and Genesis and Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yep.
And, you know, Gentle Giant was well, you stood among giants, quite frankly.
Well, that's good. Yeah, thank you. That's,
Well, you know, Ray, this has been a pleasure. And, of course, everybody should go check out the re-release of the album. And, you know, this has been great.
Great.
Thank you so much. And there you go. There was my interview with Ray Schulman of Gentle Giant. Sean, since you're such a wonderful co-host, I figured I can't throw you out. We got to do one more. So let's.
I'm in, Mitch.
You're in. We got to keep going. We're going to listen to Joseph Williams of Toto, and of course he talks about the 35th anniversary DVD live in Poland. But he also talks about this My Kind of Loving Intelligent Music Project 2, and it's put together by a gentleman called Milan Vabrensky, and hopefully I didn't mutilate that name too much, but it also includes Simon Phillips, it includes John Layton, and of course Joseph, who does a lot of the singing on these tracks. You're a big Toto fan from what I know.
I am indeed. Love that band.
What attracted you to Toto initially?
You know, it's funny. I think part of it, I have really warm memories of being a kid and hanging out at my buddy Sean Walsh's house, and his dad would always, you know, spin the vinyl at night, you know, during sleepovers and stuff. And Toto 4 was the first thing I heard from those guys. And I don't know if it's just the warm memories I associate with my childhood or whatever, but that was my introduction. But as the years go on and went on and I began to study guitar and study music, Toto is another one of these bands that for some reason people feel the freedom to malign, and I don't get it. Because combined, those guys have played on over 500 million records. Like, they were the top session guys in L.A. I think the music they make together is soulful, energetic, exciting, progressive, and ultimately really commercial in the best possible way. I mean, the melodies are so strong. You know, it's funny. Something about fall is my AOR time. Right now, my car is so full of Journey and Toto and Foreigner. I'm in that fall mood, so like this is really timely that you're speaking with Joseph. And I thought he did a great job taking over from Bobby Kimball.
Absolutely.
I think he's a really strong singer, as was the late Fergie Fredrickson from who recently passed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Toto just has this history of bringing in great players. Seems like a big revolving family, of course, that's based in the Porcaros and Steve Lukather. And yeah, man, I just watched that 35th anniversary DVD, and wow, Joe Williams sounds incredible. The band sounds hot, looks great, awesome product.
Awesome, Ben. Now, of course, since you're also working on that 4x Fate music, does that mean that we're going to have a 4x Fate music that sounds like Journey and Toto combined? Is it going to be more this big melodic rock kind of thing?
Well, you know, it's funny. I think it's going to be a little bit heavier than people are anticipating. Not to let the cat out of the bag, but it's a big, mean groove machine right now. I'll tell you that. It's the tracks I've got are just thumping. And I think there's going to be a little bit of progressive stuff. And, you know, anytime I'm calling upon that in my session work, Steve Lukather is my session guitar idol.
Yeah.
You know, I just look to him as, a player of eminent taste and technique and tone and all those things. So, you know, I'll definitely be probably trying to channel the spirit of Luke when some of those crazy chord changes are coming at me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's been playing with Ringo Starr these days, I think, right?
Yeah, man, he's in Ringo's All-Star Band. He did an amazing job with Peter Frampton at that Beatles tribute
at
for
the
Grammys.
Grammy Awards or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, Luke does everything. Like, I mean, you know, right from Thriller to Lionel Richie to the Tubes. Like, you know, that guy's on so many records that we don't even know about. He was one of those heavy duty session cats. I actually had the opportunity to play guitar in front of that guy and Joe Satriani at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in a Guitar Player magazine Guitar Hero contest. Wow. Talk about intimidating and humbling.
Well, between that and the NAMM show, people are trying to expose you. I guess they're like, all right, big guy, we're going to put you in front of all these big cats. But you know what? You keep coming out on top, and can't complain.
Well, I don't know about on top, but I'll tell you, the one cool thing I remember about that night was the time I got to spend with Steve Lukather, because I'll never forget. I was just kind of sitting at the bar, and he came over, and we had a drink, and just. It was just kind of like going to the mountain and talking to the guru, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that he took the time to share with me has stayed with me professionally. He's a beautiful, beautiful guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So if folks want to check out this album, the My Kind of Loving Intelligent Music Project with Simon Phillips, John Layton, Joseph Williams, and of course Milen Vabrevsky, head over to intelligent-music.com, intelligent-music.com. And of course, let me remind you that this episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon is brought to you by the A World with Heroes EP, available exclusively on iTunes, and features Sir Sean Kelly, that we have on the phone with us today, Russ Dwarf and the Killer Dwarves, Matt Bradshaw, who does a great version of Save Your Love, Sudden Flames, a band from Montreal, and of course, the final recording of Dick Wagner doing the song Every Time I Look at You, chosen because he had played a ghost role on the original version on the Kiss Revenge album in 1992, and I thought, what a great way to get Dick involved is to have him not be a ghost on it and actually put his voice and his guitar and the whole thing, and it sounds
so cool,
great.
Mitch. And Mitch, once again, thank you for doing that, and congratulations on the success you've had with it. If I may be so bold, I know you've done your father-in-law very proud.
Thank you. And listen, it's $30,000 raised so far, and the good thing about iTunes is that it's going to keep going, and even if every so often it's only $100 or $500, it's still always going to sort of keep his spirit alive. To quote the Killer Dwarves, of course.
Yeah, man.
And what else can you ask for? And it's
beautiful.
Yeah, all the musicians that were involved, my everlasting thanks and appreciation. But it also, none of this can happen without the fans, without people out there going, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to support this, I want to listen to these songs. Without the fans, and as a musician, without the fans, you might as well just stay home, because they are the everything, right?
Well, it's so funny. I was listening to a Kim Mitchell song of all things, and Kim Mitchell and the great lyricist Pi Dubois, and the song Rockland Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
Close companions in the concert bowl. We open our hearts. We live this song.
Yeah.
Boom! It's an interaction between fan and audience. It really dawned on me. This is one thing.
It is.
This is one thing, and it's just a transference of energy, and you are absolutely right. We don't give the fans enough credit sometimes.
No.
I really believe that, and we really have to remember, this is a communal thing.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why in the early 2000s the music industry started collapsing slowly, is because there was an arrogance of, we're the record companies and you're the fans, and then with Napster and all that, people started growing, hey, wait a minute, we're sort of all in this together. You need to take care of us, and we need to take care of you. And now that the record company's arrogance has sort of dissipated, and now people are realizing that we're this one family, I think the music business is back and is going to start thriving again very, very soon. So.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. It's a struggle to find a new model, but it's funny, as much as a certain bass-playing entrepreneur I know seems to think rock and roll is dead, I don't believe it is dead. I believe it lives on, and we'll find that new model. And
Absolutely.
You know what? People are going to keep rocking anyway.
Yeah, keep rocking. And speaking of rock, why don't we sit back and listen to Joseph Williams talk about Toto and, of course, the Intelligent Music Project. Here's Joseph. We are talking today with Joseph Williams of Toto, but Joseph, we're going to talk about another project first. We're going to talk about My Kind of Lovin' with Simon Phillips and, of course, John Lawton.
That's right.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about this project. It's, if I understand correctly, it's a charity project, and it's put together by a European gentleman named Milan Verbrevsky, if I got that right.
Yeah, Verbrevsky is his name, Milan, and he's a wonderful guy.
Okay.
He's a gentleman I met through Simon Phillips, who was the drummer with us in Toto at the time.
Right.
And Milan is actually a physician. He's a doctor.
Right.
Who came up with this idea for this charity project, and that's how I got involved through Simon.
And so, what exactly is the project? Did he write all the music, and you guys just came in and interpreted it, or did you actually write for this project?
No. This was the kind of project where guys like me and Simon were hired to basically just lend our voice or our instrumentation, that kind of thing, to this particular project, just to sort of to be a part of the charity.
When Milan brings this project to you, the My Kind of Loving and because this is the second album you've done with it, what attracts you to it? Because you must get always a lot of charities, want musicians to come and be part of it, and you get pitched a lot of stuff. What was it about this one in particular you went, yeah, I got to get in on this?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, it was really more about the man than anything else for me. Initially the gig came to me, through Simon Phillips, and at first, to be honest with you, it was a gig. It was a job I took and wanted to take because of work, that kind of thing.
Right.
But then I met Milan and got to know him a little bit and heard a little bit of the music, and one of the things that's very sweet about the way he works is English is not his first language. And so part of what Simon and I do is kind of, get in there and adjust lyrics and stuff so that the songs work better, sung in English, that kind of thing. So that part of it interests me. I'm always interested in vocal arranging and that kind of thing. I used to do a lot of Japanese projects where I would translate lyrics into English. And so there's a little bit of that fun in it for me. But to be honest with you, once I met the man and heard his mission and his idea and the concept of the records and what he was trying to say with the whole thing, it just appealed to me. I just thought he was a very wonderful guy, generous man, and those are the kind of people I like to work with. It's just pretty much as simple as that.
Does this lead to more projects down the road, or does it lead to some live shows, or is it pretty much it is what it is and that's it?
I think at this point it's pretty much is what it is. I mean, my job in Toto prevents me from doing any kind of live performing, in this kind of a situation, because it just would sort of be a conflict with our touring schedule, that kind of thing.
Right.
But who knows in the future? I mean, I obviously plan to stay in touch with Milan, and we've become great friends. There's a lot of other great talented people out there that he could, would love to bring in on future projects. These charity projects of his are seem to be very well received. He's from Bulgaria,
right?
And it's the kind of project that he can bring in different singers and different players each time. So I think that he'll continue in that way. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't be involved in some future record of his down the line. But I think the next thing he's going to do is possibly with a different lineup, so to speak.
Oh, really?
That was the indication I got. But in terms of live performance, there's nothing slated.
Okay.
Right now, it's simply just a project for a recording project to be released, and the proceeds obviously to go to this charity.
Oh, perfect. Now, of course, if people want to check out the album, they should check out mykindaloving.com. Let me switch gears and ask you a little bit about Toto. Last year was the 35th anniversary. And this year, there's talk of a new album. How is it coming along?
It's coming along really well. We've made incredible headway. It's really I'm very excited about it. It's the new material is outstanding, and there's a few just classic Pace Hooker songs that are going to be heard that really harken back to some of the older times, with,
right.
And the feeling of the band. So I'm very excited about it.
Now, you were in the band in the 80s for a few years, and then you stepped away for, almost 20 years, 21 years, in fact. What made you decide to go back? What was it about the band when you got that call, you said, you know what, after 21 years, this is right for me?
Well, I never really fell out of touch with any of them. I mean, I was in the band in the 80s, and I wasn't the first singer, but I knew these guys from when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really fell out with them. I pursued a career in television while my children were babies, which I preferred because I couldn't have gone on the road and enjoyed it when my kids were little.
Right.
So now that my kids are, 18 and 19 years old, it's a different story about going on the road. It's easy to leave town now because they pretty much take care of themselves.
Right.
But it was the real reason was Steve Lukather came to me and discussed the possibility of going out and doing some shows to benefit Mike Porcaro, the bass player, right, who is unfortunately sick with the ALS.
Right.
So that was the original intention, was to go out and make a little bit of money for Mike. And we had such a good time in 2010, we just went again in 2011, and then it just sort of snowballed into a live DVD and a new album.
Yeah, now the live DVD, live in Poland, it's a great package. Are you happy with how it came out, and would you like to do more down the road?
Well, I would love to do more down the road. My dream is to someday build it up just enough to be able to play a huge stadium somewhere before I die. And I would love to film something like that, obviously. But I'm pleased with the way it came out. It was a great show. That particular show that we performed that night was a really good one. I remember feeling good. And C.J. Vanston, who came out and recorded us and mixed the thing, I think he did a great job.
Yeah, and it absolutely looks. It really looks great. Now, you also were doing this work, in television and as a film composer. That's sort of a steady job. You can do the whole music thing, but at 5:00 you get to go home. I really just want to know, though, what attracted you to being back on the road? Because that's a tough life. It can be sort of, it's a lot of long hours for little payoff sometimes.
Well, that's true. I guess I feel different about the road than I did before. After 15, 20 years of sedentary work and sitting in front of a computer, it appealed to me to get on a plane and go somewhere and start running around stage. I felt like, this is a great way of losing a little weight. If nothing else, I can go out and to get some exercise. And I don't know. I just my voice feels very strong. I found a great teacher. So going out and doing the shows every night is really just a joy now. I mean, it's just really the best part of the whole thing. So, I feel like I'm getting paid for having to wait around in airports. That's mainly, what I'm getting paid for. The shows are the best part.
Yeah, because there's a lot of hotel lobbies and airport terminals, right?
It's endless. It's endless, but that's what they pay us for. The 2 hours on stage is really the icing. It's the frosting.
Compared to the 80s, when obviously you were a younger guy, do you have any kind of special regimen that you have to put yourself through to not lose the voice, to not have to struggle through a show? Is there anything different, or is it just same old, you hop on stage and it was like it is 20 years ago?
No, it's completely different actually from 20 years ago. The first, probably most major difference between then and now is that at that time there was no other way to monitor my voice on stage except for those wedge monitors that are down on the floor in front of you.
Right, which you can't really hear.
Right, and the problem, which it's hard to hear them to begin with, and the other thing is, as the lead singer and the guy who's basically just holding a microphone running around the stage, I'm never in front of them. I was never in front of them, so I always had a hard time hearing my voice, and as a result, would sing too hard.
Right.
So the difference now is that I have these in-ear monitors, like they're like headphones.
Right. Plug right into the ears.
Right into the ear. So I get a great mix of the band, including my voice, and it's almost like singing in the studio, which is much easier. And plus I went to a teacher who taught me how to push about half as much air and get the same high, loud, powerful notes. And so you put those two things together, plus the fact that I'm in my 50s and I take much, much better care of myself than I did in my 20s. You put all those things together, and then, the singing on stage has just become a joy.
It really has, huh?
Oh, yeah.
When does the new studio album finally land? When is it going to come out?
The new studio album is going to be early, probably right at the beginning of the spring or right at the end of the winter. So looking at probably March.
Of 2015?
Right.
Okay. And, Steve Lukather... go ahead.
I was just going to say, and some of the reason that it's going to be that far off is the fact that, Luke has commitment with Ringo.
Right.
And so we're finishing in between those runs that he has with him. So it'll be finished by the end of the year, and then we'll mix and master it and package it and prep it. And it'll be on the shelves probably in March.
And now, Steve gave an interview that was published in May where he said the new album is going to surprise people. How? What is the album going to do that's going to surprise people?
Well,
is it just musically, or is it lyrically, or is it just, what is it?
I just think that this album does a couple of things. First of all, it really pays tribute to Toto as it was,
right?
And I think that some of the fans are really going to be thrilled with that. The sound of it, the songs, the grooves, the words, the instrumentation. It's gonna have a feeling that people really, really recognize. That, on top of the fact that we've written some true extravaganza songs. I mean, some real events, and I think that's going to be really exciting for not only the fans that are already Toto fans, but people who are going to hear this thing anew,
and discover some, bring in some new fans on board. And then I'll just finish with this. So much has been made of the, illegal downloading and then just buying singles on iTunes and not buying albums. Is the making of an album a lost art, and is it even relevant in today's marketplace? Is it better just to do a single and throw it out there? I mean, why do you want to make an album? Why is it important?
Well, I mean, I think the reason this band, wants to make an album is because that's the way we used to do it. It's really hard to. I hear what you're saying completely. The world has changed, and it is kind of sad that people, download a song at a time and aren't getting the full picture, that kind of thing. But Toto is a band that has just never really been about one song, and so there's no real way to do that for this group. It's an unfortunate fact that maybe some people will miss most of this album, but we got to do it anyway.
Yeah, and I just got to say, for the record, being more of an old school kind of guy, I like a 12-song collection or a 10-song collection, something that I can listen to and find those deeper cuts and find those gems. Singles are great, but gems are what it's really all about.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we're all such huge fans of those bands back from our childhood. Yes, yeah. And so some of these bands that not only put on shows but really put on a spectacle. And if you listen to their records, the music almost sounds acrobatic. It's just so exciting.
It really is,
and somewhat orchestral too, in a rock and roll way. So there's that, and there's a lot of itches. We all have a lot of itches to scratch in that area. So the album is going to be jam packed with just a lot of stuff to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just remind folks to head over to TotoOfficial.com. And Joseph, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye. And there you have it, Joseph Williams of Toto talking about the Intelligent Music Project. Sean, Absolute pleasure. I know I told you we're going to do 5 or 10 minutes of talk-ups and co-hosting, and here we are half an hour later. Listen,
that's what happens when you bring an Irishman on your show. I already told you more than I know.
Exactly. No, but that's, listen, when you have good company, you don't just put them to the curb, and always a pleasure. Pleasure having recommended you to Brian Vollmer. Pleasure having you on the Kiss tribute. Pleasure just knowing you as a person. Pleasure knowing you back in the days of when Crash Kelly was playing, what was that, Barrymore's in Ottawa or whatever that place was. Always just a pleasure. And you've got to do more of these spots. It's, I'd
love to, man.
I think it sounds great. And anything that you need to plug, website, Twitter, anything?
No, man. I'm still getting a handle on everything. You can follow me at Sean Kelly Guitar. Hear me rant about something once in a while. Check out Facebook Metal on Ice if you want to hear what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just look out. I'm working with Honeymoon Suite on some new material. Working with Lee Aaron on some new stuff. The 4 by Fate stuff. Working with a fantastic young artist named Andy, who's about to go out with Demi Lovato. I helped put the band together for that. There's just trying to keep busy, and I'm blessed with all the people I get to play with and work with, like you, Mitch.
Yeah, and of course, folks, head over to iTunes and pick up the Metal on Ice EP. Pick up the book. I guess you can get it at Amazon and all the online retailers.
Hey, you got it.
And always a pleasure. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, brother.